Hello, you all again. For the people who were absent some minutes ago, tonight we're going to have the session, our sixth session of listening, and it's about organization type of question. This type of question has two types, and we will cover both types, one in this session and one in the upcoming session. But for tonight, it's going to be just one type of it. So I want you to master that first, and then we will go to another type of it. Okay. So in this type of question, before we go and delve into the organization question type 1, I want you guys to, like, if you have any background information, or if you can infer something from the name of organization question. We have discussed this in some of the sessions, I believe. We've had some questions about this. I believe that you might be able to know a little bit about this. So if anyone knows anything about it, if you want to discuss it, if you want to talk about it, you're the most welcome. Please go ahead. Anyone? If anyone knows anything about it, it's fine. Okay, so we will start. I'll tell you. What is an organization question? This type of question, as you can see, as you can get it from the name, it's for the organization, the way the lecture is organized. And when we say this, it means that if you listen to the lecture all the way through, or like you're taking notes, right? You're going to see how the lecture is organized. This has two types of two types it has. One is like it asks about the way the lecture is organized. Like it can ask you, how is the lecture organized? And then you say that the lecture was organized as the teacher first says something about the specific topic, and then he gives some examples in this way. That's one type of it, okay? The other type that we're going to cover tonight is this one, that it, like, you look at your notes and then you see why one exact part was mentioned. So it will ask you about something like, why does the professor mention this? Why does the professor discuss this? And it mostly is about an example that the professor gives. Maybe it could be any example. It's a little different from inference type of question, because in inference, it's it's a sentence that they ask you and they say, what did the professor infer? What can you infer from what the professor said? Or what did the professor imply? It's something like this, right? But in the organization question, it's more of how the lecture was organized, because they ask you about a particular example. They say, why did the professor give this particular example? Why did the professor mention this exact part? And so you will know it that way, okay? And again, for this one, notes are really important for every type of question, but for this one, it's the most important. Like most of the time, if your notes are not complete, you won't be able to understand this question and you won't be able to respond to this question, because, this is that way. You have to look at your notes, because most of the answers, they just look completely the same. But if you look at your notes, you will see that this particular example was mentioned after this part. So you will know it that way. Now we have an audio that you have to listen to. And at the same time, I want you to take notes. Take notes for every listening audio, but take notes for organization type of question really attentively. Listen to everything in that and take notes from every single part of it. And then you will be able to understand the question and you will be able to respond to that particular question. Okay, so I will play the audio for you guys, and you have to take notes in 3, 2, 1.
Here's an excerpt from the lecture. So now Cuff arrives. Cuff is the man who's coming to solve the mystery. And again, he has a lot of the characteristics that future detectives throughout the history of this genre will have. He's eccentric. He has a hobby that he's obsessive about. In this case, it's the love of roses. He's a fanatic about the breeding of roses. And here, think of Nero Wolfe and his orchids, Sherlock Holmes and his violin. A lot of those later classic detective heroes have this kind of outside interest that they go to as a kind of antidote to the evil and misery they encounter in their daily lives. Now, these detective heroes, they have this characteristic of being smart, incredibly smart, but of not appearing to be smart. And most importantly, from a kind of existential point of view, these detectives see things that other people do not see. And that's why the detective is such an important figure, I think, in our modern imagination. In the case of the Moonstone, I don't want to say too much here and spoil it for you, but the clue that's key to the solving of the crime is a smeared bit of paint in a doorway. Of course, the regular police have missed this paint smear or made some sort of unwarranted assumption about it. Cuff sees this smear of paint, this paint, the place where the paint is smeared, and realizes that from this one smear of paint, you can actually deduce the whole situation, the whole world. And that's what the hero in a detective novel like this brings to it that the other characters don't. It's this ability to see meaning where others see no meaning, and to bring order to where it seems there is no order.
That was it for the audio. Now we have the question, but before we go to the question exactly, I want you to have a look at the notes that I have taken. These are the notes for this exact audio. So this is how I can take notes, and it depends on you as well. Like, you can just see how you take notes, and you can compare these two right now. The way I take notes is, first I have CF, right? And that's for cuff, definitely. It's that person, cuff. Can you see it, like, when I'm writing on the screen? Can you see it? With the red. Okay, thank you so much. So I had CF as cuff, and then I had solve. So it's like cuff comes to solve this thing, right? And then we talk about the characteristics, that cuff has, and that the future, and it's like it's gonna happen in the future as well. Like, the future detectives will have it, not will not. We say that they will have it, and this is just an arrow, nothing else. And after that, I talked about, like, I wrote those exact characteristics. The one is that he's eccentric. The other one is the hobby. Like, he has maybe odd hobbies. And in this case, it's the love for roses. You can write rose, and you can draw it if you want to. For love, you can just draw a heart or something. And then arrows. One thing that's really important, at least to me, for taking notes is arrows. When I want to say something, and when I want to delve into it, I want to go deeper about that particular thing, I use arrows a lot. Like, we have rose, and then I have this arrow here, right? I have the arrow that roses and the breeds. And then they talked about two people, and that's how they compared the love of roses in cuff to some other people. They talked about NW. It was a person. You don't have to know the name of that person, because you will have just one name that way if there is a question that way, if there is a detailed question that way. It won't be that all of the names will start with N and then the last name would be with W. It would just be with something else, something completely different, that you at least know that it's like it was with N and W. So NW with Orchid, he had this. And Sherlock Holmes with V, violin. You can draw a violin if you want to. You can just do this. This is like a drawing. I know it's bad drawing, but at least you know it, because it will just take 5 minutes maximum. You'll know that from the point that you're taking notes to the point that you're answering the questions, it will take 5 minutes or something. So you will know that that particular drawing is violin to you. And then we talked about the other heroes, the other detective heroes, that they were later than that. They were classic, CLSC. I have written, not classic exactly. And those classic heroes had some other things. They had some interests in some other things, and those interests were part of like evil and mystery and something. So I've written it that way, if you can see it. And then we have the detectives. What do they have? Detectives are overly smart. For when you want to say that they're smart, you write this, right? Smart. But then when you want to suppose you're saying that they were over smart, they're extraordinarily smart, you can just do this. Or if you want to compare two things, like one thing is really really smart, or one person is really really smart and the other person is just smart, you can use many arrows this way, up arrows and down arrows, if you want to say that if it's smart or if it's not smart. Or you can use this thing as well, like this is for not, at least for me I use it this way, like when I say not this thing, then I draw a negative and then I draw a circle around it, because it should be different from the hyphen, right? Because if you see here, look, this is a hyphen, but the other thing that's exactly beside it, it's a not, it's a negative thing, like you want to say that non-appearing. They were over smart, and then I have hyphen, and then I have not appearing. They were smart but not appearing smart. And how? It's the way they would see things. This is a thing. I like they see things that other people, this is, well, suppose this is people. This is PPL. Other people don't see it. Again, for not seeing, I have used this. And again, arrows, you can use anything else that you want. Depends on you. Any way that you get it, it will work fine. And these are the most important things in modern imagination. Then if you want to maybe separate two topics, like then after some point, after some paragraph, the teacher has some pauses maybe, then you can just separate them by a line this way, so that you know that now this particular topic is finished and now we should go to the next topic, right? I do that usually. So I say key to solve of this was smear paint. Smear paint was in the doorway, DRWY. The police could not see it. Again, arrow in this could not see it, but cuff could see it, right? So again, for cuff, if you look at this place, I have cuff, then this positive thing, this positive, it means yes. And it goes to the way he deduced the world and all that. And the differences between the hero detectives and the novels and other people is in these two things, the way they see things and the way they order things. These are the two. This is how you can take notes. You won't miss anything, and you will be able to answer any question that's on your way. Okay? Now let's go back to our question. I'll erase this, and then now, this is the question. Why does the professor mention a smeared bit of paint in a doorway in the Moonstone? A, to describe a mistake that Sergeant Cuff has made. B, to show how realistically the author describes the crime scene. C, to exemplify a pattern repeated in many other detective stories. D, to illustrate the superior techniques used by the police. This is our question, right? I want you to go back to your notes. Suppose these are your notes. What do you think about it? Why did the professor mention the smeared bit of paint? Just look at your notes and then go back to the question. Usually when you want to answer this type of question, go to the something that's before that thing that's mentioned. So before smeared painting, what was mentioned before that, you can look at that and then go back to the question. All right, it's fine if you don't want to answer this. This is the first one, so I will answer this to you. Let's eliminate again. The first one, to describe a mistake that Sergeant Cuff has made. This is not correct, I believe. At least I believe so, because this was not a problem. This was not a mistake. B, to show how realistically the author describes the crime scene. Oh, we have an answer here. C. That's great. Thank you so much, Medina. B, to show how realistically the author describes the crime scene. It wasn't mentioned at any point of this audio, right? It wasn't mentioned there. So this is not correct either. Yeah, it is like realistic that the author described the crime scene, but it's not correct. C, to exemplify a pattern repeated in many other detective stories. This, though, was mentioned, at least here, that the detectives are overly smart and not appearing smart the way they see the world. And then after this point that we said important and, everything else important, and they use it in modern imagination. And we talked about this, the way detectives see the world and the way they use it in other novels as well. And then after that, we had the smeared paint. So it looks good. And the last one, to illustrate the superior techniques used by the police. This is definitely not correct, because we just said that the police were not able to see it that way. So C is the correct answer here. All right. And yes, Medina, you were correct. Thank you so much. Now let's go to the next audio. Again, listen and take notes. Take notes from every single thing. Don't miss anything. And when I say anything, I mean it. Okay? I mean, especially for this type of question. So in 3, 2, 1.
Now listen to a lecture in a history class. Have you ever heard someone call someone else a Benedict Arnold? Well, that was the name of a real person, whose name is now synonymous with treachery and betrayal. Born in Connecticut in 1741, Arnold was a general in the Revolutionary War, when America was fighting for its independence from Britain. In fact, Arnold was good friends with George Washington, who he met in 1775. As you all know, Washington was our first president, so that shows you how close Arnold was to the war effort, doesn't it? At the time, Washington had just taken command of the newly formed Continental Army in Boston. Arnold showed incredible leadership skills when he took over a key fort in 1775. So Washington decided to ask Arnold to lead a charge of soldiers into Canada to take Quebec City and bring that province into the rebellion. Arnold did so with enthusiasm, but suffered a serious wound on the last day in a failed attempt to capture that city. Benedict Arnold went on to fight successfully in 1776 in keeping the British from invading the colonies through the Lake Champlain region. And his greatest victory was in Saratoga in 1777, which led to the French coming into the war as America's first and most important allies. Washington thought of Arnold as a fighting general and supported him as much as he could up to the time of Benedict Arnold's defection to the British. So, why did Arnold decide to switch to the British side and betray his friends and fellow soldiers? His bitterness about being ignored, passed over for promotions, and relegated to military commander of a city instead of a group of soldiers had made him furious. And he had been fuming about it for years. He married his wife Peggy in 1779. Arnold purchased Mount Pleasant that same year, a large manor home. The couple did not live at Mount Pleasant, however, but rented it out for the income. Now the plot thickens. You see, Peggy was a British loyalist and had contacts within the British Army, and she offered to share them with her new husband. At first, he did not know whether to take her suggestion to defect seriously, After all, what she was suggesting was to betray both the cause he had been fighting for and his good friend Washington. But over time, she persuaded him to speak to her connections. Eventually, Arnold decided to change sides, and by 1780, he was officially fighting as a British soldier. In return, the British made him a brigadier general, a position with some power and influence, but he wasn't paid as much as he had expected. When the Revolutionary War was over, he moved to Canada to run a merchant business with his sons, Richard and Henry. He was extremely unpopular in Canada, so he moved to London permanently in 1791, where he died 10 years later. Now, his legacy is tarnished by his treachery. So if anyone calls you a Benedict Arnold, now you know it's not a compliment.
All right, that was it. That was such a, call it narrative about this person, right? About Benedict Arnold. So from now on, if someone is disloyal and they make some treachery, you can call them Benedict Arnold if you want to be a little luxurious and fancy. So the first question now here is, why does the professor say this? Now the plot thickens. This is a question. A, she is about to tell a personal story. When it means that when did she say this exact part? Did she want to say a personal story? That's why she said now the plot thickens, or is it something else? B, she wants to see if the students understood her point. C, she is about to tell the students important information. D, she is concerned the students might be bored by the lecture. I think this is quite easy. Even if you haven't heard this audio, you would know this. We have a C, 2C, right? And awesome. Yes, C is the correct answer. Let's go to the next question. It's this. Why does the professor mention Benedict Arnold's wife, Peggy? A, to note the impact his marriage had on his relationship with George Washington. B, to explain how Arnold got into contact with the British. C, to compare Arnold's life events to Washington's. And D, to explain why Arnold moved to Mount Pleasant. Now, this question is good. B. Yes, awesome. That's amazing. Yes. So now we did talk about the Mount Pleasant as well, right? But that was not the reason that the professor mentioned Benedict Arnold's wife, and they didn't move to Mount Pleasant. She just talked about it, and then she said that they didn't move there. They just rented it out, right? So yeah, this is not a correct answer. And the correct answer is B, the way you said it. Now there we have another audio. And again, it's about this little creature. Listen to the audio and then you'll know and understand what it is. Now in 3, 2, 1.
Now listen to the lecture.
Ladies and gentlemen, today we will explore the interesting world of the flying lizard, or Dracovolans. Small, arboreal lizards like the Dracovolans are indigenous to Southeast Asia, specifically Indonesia, Malaysia, and the Philippines. By creating wing-like structures called patagia, they enable them to glide from tree to tree. These unusual creatures have adapted to their environment in a fascinating way. Let me go into more detail about these amazing creatures. Their bodies contain extended ribs that project outward and support a thin skin membrane called the patagium. The patagium extends when the lizard expands its limbs, forming a structure resembling wings. They can avoid predators and navigate their woodland habitat more effectively because of this adaptability. The proverb, adapt or perish, might be said to be perfectly embodied by the Dracovolans. This species uses a variety of vivid hues including blue, green, and red, to help in communication and camouflage. Let's now look at their special gliding prowess. Despite not being able to fly like birds, they have skilled gliders and can travel up to 30 feet in a single glide. In order to gain height, they use updrafts. Once airborne, they glide through trees in search of food or to avoid potential predators. They can change the angle of their patagia in midair, which is an intriguing part of their gliding behavior. They can keep control during their airborne adventures thanks to this. Being insectivores, Dracovolans primarily eat termites, ants, and other small insects. They snag insects off tree bark and leaves with the use of their lengthy, sticky tongues. In order to keep the forest environment in balance, this diet is essential since it helps to regulate insect populations. As a result, these little but formidable organisms play a crucial role in the stability and health of the forest. In addition to their ability to glide and their distinctive nutrition, Dracovolans have an unusual reproductive method. Unlike the majority of arboreal lizards, which lay their eggs in trees, females lay their eggs in tiny holes they dig in the ground. Choosing to lay their eggs on the ground is a calculated risk that has ensured their survival over the millennia. After the eggs are placed, the female will watch over the nest to protect her young. In summary, the Dracovolans is a remarkable animal whose special adaptations have allowed it to flourish in its natural habitat. These flying lizards provide a fascinating look into the wonders of the natural world and the significance of adaptations in the face of adversity, from their wing-like patagia to their unique reproductive techniques.
Now, this is the flying lizard. Does anyone like lizards? Maybe. At least I don't think so. But this is like the flying one. And this one, we would be disgusted by it, I believe. Thank God we haven't seen it. But the one that we have seen it, we're disgusted by it. I just don't understand how disgusting this one would be. So the first question is, what is the main idea of the lecture? Again, let's get back to the normal type of questions that we have. And this is the gist content question. A, the colorful appearance of the Dracovolans. B, the reproductive strategies of arboreal lizards. C, the unique adaptations and ecological role of the Dracovolans. D, the diet of the Dracovolans. C, awesome. C is correct. Next question is this. What does the professor imply when saying this? And again, I'll play it.
The proverb, adapt or perish, might be said to be perfectly embodied by the Dracovolans.
This one was good. Adapt or perish. What does the professor imply when saying this? A, the Dracovolans is a very intelligent species. B, the Dracovolans will be extinct soon. C, the Dracovolans has evolved unique adaptations to survive. D, the saying is about the Dracovolans specifically. Awesome. Everyone says C, and yes, C is correct. They said adapt or perish. I mean, this is quite obvious, right? You either adapt or you perish. You just go away and you'll vanish. That's all. The next question is, again, an inference type of question. What does the professor mean by this? Again, listen.
Calculated risk that has ensured their survival over the millennia.
Now, this is the question. What did the professor mean by saying this? A, the risk of laying eggs on the ground has been successful for the species. B, the female lizards can predict the future. C, the risk of laying eggs on the ground is too dangerous. D, the survival of the species is purely based on luck. We have C again. No, C is not correct. C is definitely not correct. The professor talked about laying eggs in the ground, and then she said that it has made them survive for millennia or something, right? So it's definitely not dangerous for them. It's good for them. Okay, we have A, B, C, D. Wow. Okay, let's go to A first. The risk of laying eggs on the ground has been successful for the species. This is good. It has been successful. B, the female lizard can predict the future. No. I mean, the professor didn't want to say anything about predicting the future. It is good. It has preserved the future for them because they can have many more generations by laying eggs in the ground, but they cannot predict the future. C, the risk of laying eggs on the ground is too dangerous. We already discussed this. D, the survival of the species is purely based on luck. No, again, not luck. It's based on, I mean, it's a little safer, maybe. Underground, it's not based on luck. It's just that it's like it's safer for them to have their eggs there because it's out of reach for most of the creatures that do eat the eggs, maybe. So A is the correct answer. The next question is this. What is the professor implying about the relationship between the Dracovolans and the forest ecosystem? A, the Dracovolans created the forest ecosystem. B, the forest ecosystem is not important for the Dracovolans. C, the Dracovolans plays a crucial role in maintaining the balance of the forest ecosystem. D, the forest ecosystem can easily survive without the Dracovolans. We have C from everyone. Yes, that's correct. This was such an easy question. Next off, why does the professor say the Dracovolans uses vibrant colors in communication? And this is an organization question. Why did the professor say that? A, to emphasize the importance of colors in attracting mates. B, to compare the Dracovolans with other colorful animals. C, to explain how the Dracovolans chooses its diet. D, to underline the visual attractiveness of the species. We have A, B, and the rest. D, A, B, D, okay. A, B, D. That's good. Okay, again, let's have somebody starting from D. Shahla Azad, why do you think D is correct?
Well, hello everyone. Well,
Hello.
actually, I'm torn between yeah, about A and D. And I doubt about A more than D. Of color
So
to
you think
attracting
more
mates, maybe
okay. You think
according
A
to
is the better option?
yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
Okay, all right. Okay, then we have D. Why do you think D is correct though? You've mentioned this, as I see.
I said before because I'm torn between two options. I doubt on
Okay.
two options to maybe
Okay.
yeah, they be correct.
All right, it's fine. Yeah, A is correct. To emphasize the importance of colors in attracting mates, not about the visual attractiveness. They don't want to just be attractive, and in order for that, they will just change their colors. I mean, this is true for humans. They usually change their color, and they get some tans, or in some countries they get rid of the melanin to become attractive. But for most of the animals, it's not the case. They change their colors for something else, for some important thing, not for just the visual attractiveness. Next off, it's this question. Why does the professor mention the ability of the Dracovolans to maneuver midair by adjusting the angle of their patagia? A, to demonstrate their intelligence. B, to highlight a unique aspect of their gliding behavior. C, to emphasize their limitations compared to birds. D, to argue for their classification as flying creatures. And remember, it's about the angle of their patagia. Could I define the B, option B? It's about the gliding behavior. I mean, if you have listened to anything, to any podcast or any other type of video about how airplanes and how birds work and the way they can fly, you will know what gliding behavior is. Gliding behavior is the way they have their wings so that most of the air is under their wings, and that air can keep them like for flying, and it can keep them in the air, and it just causes them not to fall. That's the gliding behavior. And it usually depends on the angle of your wings. I think I just answered this particular question. Yes, B is correct. To highlight a unique aspect of their gliding behavior. And for the people who have said B, yes, you're right. Next is another audio. I want you to listen to this, and I shouldn't be answering to every question from now on. All right. I want you to listen in 3, 2, 1.
Listen to a conversation between a student and a professor.
Oh, hi, Melanie. How are you doing?
I'm good, thanks. I just have some questions about this paper for your class. Do you have a second to talk about it now?
Oh, yes, no problem. I have about 20 minutes before my next class. Will that be enough time?
Yeah, I think so. Okay, so the thing is, I'm writing my paper on the history of jazz in New York City.
All right. Well, that's a pretty broad subject.
Well, actually, I'm focusing on a specific decade, the 50s, and I'm only doing it on a few specific artists.
Oh, okay. Because I was going to say that seemed a bit, too ambitious for a 10-page paper.
Yeah, no, it's not the subject I'm having trouble with. Actually, the paper is practically writing itself. I mean, I've got a lot to say, and it's going pretty well. The thing is, I have this idea that might make it better, and I was wondering if there's any way I could get an extension. I mean, I know it's due next week, right?
That's right, on Monday. But I don't understand. It sounds like you're doing so well. Why do you need more time?
Yeah, well, I could write the paper as it is and turn it in on time, and it would be fine.
But
I was just talking to one of my friends whose family has lived in New York forever, and it turns out that her grandfather was actually there in the period of jazz I'm writing about. I mean, he was a jazz musician, and he actually, personally knew the artists I'm writing about.
you're kidding. Well, that's a coincidence.
Yeah, I know, it's cool, right? So anyway, that's why I was wondering if I could get an extension, because I thought it would be really great if I could, interview him for my paper.
Ah,
But I don't think I can meet with him until early next week. So,
I see. Well, it would certainly add a new dimension to your paper, wouldn't it? Have you talked to this gentleman yet?
no. But I talked to my friend, just, ran the idea past her, and she said he would probably love to do it. But, he's busy until next week.
Okay, well, yeah. I think that in this case, we can definitely extend your deadline until, let's say, Friday next week.
Okay, that would be great.
But just to be fair, why don't you turn in an outline of your paper on the due date?
The outline? Oh, that's no problem. It's basically done, except for the parts about the interview.
Oh, yeah, the interview. Could you have the questions ready then, too? The ones you're planning on asking?
Sure, yeah, I can do that too.
And then I'll expect the final draft next Friday.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Sure, I'm looking forward to reading it.
Let's go to the questions. This is the first. Why does the student go to see the professor? A, to ask if she can interview him for her paper. B, to ask permission to extend the length of her paper. C, to ask permission to change the topic of her paper. D, to ask for more time to finish her paper. An easy one, right? Some people have said B, and some others have said D. Good. What about the rest? Yeah, it's correct. Yeah, D is correct. To ask for more time to finish her paper. Next off, What does the professor ask the student to do on the original due date of the paper? On the original one. And you have to click on two answers. A, turn in her first draft. B, hand in an outline. C, submit interview questions. D, confirm that she has scheduled an interview. B and C, great. What about others? B and C, C and D. Cool. BC for most of the class, and yeah, BC, that's the correct one. B and C. Hand in an outline and submit interview questions. Next is this. Why does the, wait, it's the student this time. Why does the student say this? And again, there is an audio that you have to listen. This is an organization question, okay?
Listen again to part of the conversation, then answer the question.
Okay, so the thing is, okay, I'm writing my paper on the history of jazz in New York City.
All right, well, that's a pretty broad subject.
Well, actually, I'm focusing on a specific decade, the 50s.
Yeah, it was this. Why does the student say this? A, to address the professor's concern. B, to explain a change in her approach to her paper. C, to restate the professor's point. D, to request approval of her topic. I think this is quite easy. A. Yes, completely correct. A is the correct answer. To address the professor's concern, because first the professor had this concern of being a broad subject, and then she said that I'm just focusing on some particular point of time, and it's just the 50s. And now it's about the sci-fi, something related to that. And it's the last audio for tonight. Again, listen and take notes. Jot everything down. In 3, 2, 1.
Now listen to the lecture.
We will look into the intriguing field of cold fusion, a subject that has piqued the interest of both the general public and experts. Contrary to the high temperature conditions that are generally required for classical fusion events, cold fusion is a hypothesized process that produces nuclear fusion reactions at ambient temperature or a temperature close to it. Let's first quickly go over nuclear fusion itself. When lighter elements such as hydrogen combine to form heavier elements such as helium, fusion takes place, releasing enormous quantities of energy in the process. The sun and other stars are powered by this process. Scientists have long sought to harness nuclear fusion for energy generation because it has the potential to produce clean, almost endless power. Several decades ago, when scientists started looking into the feasibility of producing nuclear fusion events at ambient temperature, the idea of cold fusion first came into being. The possibility of utilizing an almost limitless source of energy with little negative effects on the environment served as the main driving force behind these investigations. Numerous researchers have reported LENR, or low-energy nuclear reactions, that could be caused by cold fusion as cold fusion research has continued throughout the years. However, a fundamental barrier to the field's advancement has been the absence of a broadly accepted theory explaining the mechanism underlying these reactions. The presence of minuscule contaminants or flaws in the experimental apparatus is one explanation for the inconsistent outcomes in cold fusion studies. It can be difficult to reliably duplicate the results because even minor changes in the environment can have an impact on the conclusion. There have been new initiatives to investigate the potential of cold fusion in recent years. It is hoped that technological developments and a better knowledge of nuclear reactions would lead to cold fusion being a practical energy source in the future. In their pursuit of cold fusion, researchers continue to push the limits of our knowledge because of the promise of clean, abundant energy.
Well,
This is such a cool topic. This is the first question. What is the main idea of the lecture? A, the history of cold fusion. B, the difficulties in reproducing cold fusion experiments. C, the process of nuclear fusion. And D, an overview of cold fusion and its potential implications. Again, easy. Yes, that's right. D is the correct answer. Next off, what does the professor suggest as a possible reason for varying results in cold fusion experiments? That's a detailed question. A, inadequate funding. B, lack of collaboration. C, presence of impurities or imperfections. D, insufficient technology. This was the reason that the professor said that it might be this exact reason for the varying results in cold fusion experiments. We have D from some people. I don't know if it's from the previous question or is it from this question. We have a C. What about the others? C, great. We have C from 3 people. 4, yeah, C is the correct one. Presence of impurities or imperfections. That's correct. Number 14. According to the professor, what is a significant obstacle in advancing the field of cold fusion? A, limited experimental data. B, lack of a widely accepted theory explaining the mechanism. C, insufficient funding for research. D, difficulty in scaling up the process. This is an obstacle, though. B. Great, yeah, B is the correct answer. Next, according to the lecture, what is one possible explanation for the difficulty in reproducing cold fusion results? A, lack of funding. B, inadequate technology. C, wait. This is, I guess, the same exact one, isn't it? Is it possible? Okay. Oh, okay, this is different. This is another one, but I guess this has the same exact result, I think. So let's go to this question. Number 16. Why does the professor discuss low energy nuclear reactions, or LENR? A, to emphasize their importance in cold fusion research. B, to explain the difference between LENR and traditional fusion. C, to argue for increased funding for LENR research. D, to provide evidence supporting the existence of cold fusion. This is our organization question. Again, look at your notes. We have A from 4 people. Yeah, correct. A is correct. Thank you. And the last one, why does the professor say that scientists continue to explore cold fusion? A, because of the potential for clean and practically limitless energy. B, to prove the mainstream scientific community wrong. C, to demonstrate the persistence of the scientific community. D, in order to create a new technology for energy production. This is the last question for tonight, and we have correct answers from everyone. Thank you so much, you guys, and I really am proud of you. And thank you. If you have any ambiguity, please do ask, and if you don't, I will ask for the attendance link, and till that time, you can stay here. Yeah, and here we have the attendance form. Thank you so much. And before you submit your attendance, I want to ask you about something. When do you want to have your makeup session? The makeup for the one that we have messed. Any day in your mind that you might be free or any time? Or you can just continue till, like, it's this thing that some of the times, if you don't have any day as free, and like it's the time that it's not like all the class could be free at that time, because of that, it might go one more week. Like you would be finished with all the other sections in 1 week, and the next week we will be finished with the listening section. We can have it that way, and if you want to, we can have the makeup session as well in some of these days. Maybe tomorrow, maybe the day after, or any other day. What about tomorrow? The makeup section, the makeup, not section, the makeup session is, well, I don't know if you remember that or not, but we have missed one session. We haven't had it. About Sunday, what time? Is it good at this time? Maybe 6 o'clock, 6 to 7? No, it's 5:30 to 6:30. Yeah, it's 5:30 to 6:30. I know that you have reading sessions, but the thing is that ours will not be like at that exact time, because that's at 9 to 10, right? And this is from 5:30 to 6:30. Oh, how about teaching for 2 hours in one day? Do you have any problem with that, you guys? Maybe in the next session, we can have it from 6:30 until 8:30. Does that work for you? Okay, it's fine. We will not have it tomorrow. It's okay. Just tell me about this. We will have it in the next Friday, and it would be from 6:30 to 8:30. That would be the session from that week and the makeup session together. Yeah, great. Then we will have it at that time, okay? And if it will be overwhelming, then we won't have it. Don't worry, we will have 1 hour and we will see if you can attend the next one. We will have it. And if you can't, when we are talking about the majority of the class, not just 1 or 2 people, if you guys cannot attend it, then it will be fine. We won't have it at that time. We will just take it some other time, okay? We'll hold it some other day, or we can just postpone it. Anything that works for you. Yeah, great then. Thank you so much and have a good night.